Welcome. This is the January 26th, 2026 Estes Park School District R3 Board of Education regular meeting. It's now 5:15 p.m. and this meeting is called to order. Please stand for the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America, to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Aaron, please conduct a board roll call.
Director Furry.
Here.
Director Kendall.
Here.
Director Shockett.
Here.
Director Widerski.
Here.
Director Wiss.
I'd like to, a quick note, Superintendent Bodie is joining us tonight's meeting via Zoom.
Hi, everyone.
Moving on to approval of the agenda, the board members have an agenda before you. At this time, I'll take any comments or amendments to the current agenda. Seeing none, is there a motion to approve the current agenda?
I move we approve the current agenda.
I second.
We have a motion and a second. Aaron, please conduct a board roll call.
Director Furry.
Aye.
Director Kendall.
Aye.
Director Shockett.
Aye.
Director Widerski.
Aye.
Director Wiss.
Aye.
Ayes carry the vote and the agenda is approved. Moving on to agenda item 2, public participation. We had no members from the community sign up to speak this evening. Agenda item 3, spotlight on success. Unfortunately, the spotlight on success this evening was the middle school environmental resilience team. They're not able to join us this evening, so we'll look forward to celebrating their achievements at another time. Moving on to agenda item 4, discussion item. Agenda item 4.1, the Board of Education will conduct interviews of the professional search firm consultant candidates to conduct the superintendent search. This evening, we have 2 firms will be presenting. First is Dr. Walt Cooper with McPherson and Jacobson, followed by Dr. Baugh and Mr. Brian Eart with HYA. Dr. Cooper, can you join us at the podium, please?
Good evening, and thanks for the invitation to join you this evening. We appreciate it very much. I'm going to queue up my slides here. Are we ready? Perfect. Okay. Just by way of very quick introduction, very quick. Thank you, President Fury, for that. But my name is Walt Cooper, and if you choose to go with McPherson Jacobson for your upcoming superintendent search, I'll be one of 2 consultants that will be working the search. Randy Zila, Dr. Randy Zila from Loveland is actually the lead consultant for the search. He could not be here tonight, so I'm giving the presentation on behalf of our firm. But I'm a retired Colorado superintendent. I'll leave it at that. If you want to know more, your page 20 in your proposal tells you all the sordid details, but that's probably not important or of interest to you. So I'll just jump right in and get to the meat of why I'm here this evening. So again, thank you very much for this opportunity. I'm going to start with just a little bit about our firm, about McPherson and Jacobson, and our approach. And then I really want to go through this fairly quickly. I trust that you all have looked at the proposal document that's in front of you, so I'm not going to belabor a lot of those details. But I do want to make sure that I get to the point where we have time for you to ask any questions that you might have about our approach or anything in the proposal, because that's probably the most important facet of what we do here this evening. So I will start and just talk a little bit about the firm as a whole, and then we'll get down to what we do in Colorado. But McPherson Jacobson is truly a national search firm. And the reason I highlight truly is because there are a number of firms in this industry across the country that do superintendent or executive search work. But just because a firm works in a number of different states doesn't really make them a true national search firm. So McPherson Jacobson, as you see on the graphic there, we're Colorado owned. Our ownership group is based here in Colorado. And then our structure is that we have regional offices. We're structured in 3 regional offices, 1 in Washington, 1 in Nebraska, and 1 in Georgia. And you might think, well, what does that have to do? I'll talk a little bit more about that, why that's germane to the search work here in just a minute. But this regional structure really does provide us with a true national presence. And what that national presence results in is Mac and Jake, is, as we colloquially refer to ourselves, has done over 1,100 searches, been around since 1991. We've done 1,100 successful searches across the country, more than that. That's a round number. In 45 states, and we have about 120 consultants across the country that lean into this work for the firm. You can see sampling of our consultant locations there. But you sitting on the board here in Estes Park may be thinking, well, that's really immaterial to us. We really don't care about what you do across the country or where you are in the United States, but it does matter. Matter of fact, it matters a lot. And as I said, I'll talk about that more in just a minute. But what matters most, I'm sure, what matters greatly is what we do here in our own backyard of Colorado. And Mac and Jake conducts more Colorado searches each year, especially over the last decade or so, than all other search firms combined. And that's not anything that you couldn't verify if you wanted to look at that. But McPherson and Jacobson does the lion's share of superintendent searches in Colorado, and a lot of that is because of our Colorado team. So that list there that you see is representative of our consultants based here in Colorado. As you see, I live in Colorado Springs. We have representation across all areas, all regions of Colorado. Our Colorado team is fourfold larger than any other team, any other search firm in the country that does work in the state. And that's important because it provides both regional and local expertise. It also helps keep your costs down because we don't travel, right? If you're close, you don't have to travel. And so those are expenses. We're not flying folks in. We're not staying overnight. We're not incurring some of those expenses that would be passed along to you. But again, we'll talk a little bit about why I will talk a little bit about why that national presence is important to this. But in the event you're interested, you can refer to pages 34 and 35 in your proposal document lists more than 70 searches, more than the districts that we've served in the last about 6 years, 5.5 to 6 years in Colorado, those 70 searches. And I'll say more about that as well in just a second. So really there are 6 facets, more specifically of working with Mac and Jake that I want to highlight tonight in this order. The first is we're a well-established and leading national search firm, been around since 1991, so we're not going anywhere. And when I say well-established and leading national search firm, that's easy for you to look. Ask ChatGPT, ask Perplexity, ask your AI engine of choice. Really doesn't matter how you phrase the question, but if you want to ask about predominant or preeminent search firms in the country, do that. Based on how you phrase the question, you might see, a change here or there, but there are 2 or 3 firms that are going to show up as a result of the history. HYA is one of them. McPherson Jacobs, another, Ray and Associates. And so the lion's share of all of the superintendent's work across the country really is supported by a very, very small handful of firms, very small number of firms, although there are a lot of firms that work in the arena. I'm going to talk a little bit about our engagement with stakeholders. I know that's important to you. And notice on that slide, I talk about authentic and extensive, and I'll tell you why I use those 2 terms. Again, we'll talk a little bit about why our national presence and our consultant network is important to you in Estes Park, why it matters that we have folks in Alabama and Arizona and New Hampshire. Talk a little bit about our customized search protocols, the value that you will see with our firm, and then the track record of our sustained leadership as we go through this. So the first thing I'll talk about is our high degree of stakeholder involvement. So that first bullet there, when we talk about a hiring process, right, no one would argue that it's important to have as best you can, right, a bias-free, equitable, transparent hiring process. You want to make sure that your screening of candidates isn't biased. You want to make sure that you don't have any prejudicial questions, all of that sort of stuff, right? Nobody would argue that. Our point is that we really think that eliminating bias and being truly equitable does not begin with the candidate process. It begins with the stakeholder process. And so if we really want to have a truly inclusive and equitable hiring process, we have to begin that process with stakeholders. And the primary way we do that is through our online survey. We have a very robust online tool that eliminates things, as you see in that second bullet, it eliminates things like work schedules, childcare, transportation, all of those barriers that would preclude folks from leaving home, coming to a meeting, sitting in a room, doing a focus group, probably a focus group that is dominated likely by maybe the loudest and the most disgruntled voice in the room and not truly representative of your constituents. So our online stakeholder tool is really is a critical component and really important to our search process. We'll talk about that more in a minute. We also come and do focus groups, if you would like us to, on-site engagement for folks that you identify for us. And maybe that's town council, maybe that's an administrators group, maybe it's parish leaders, whatever it might be. Whatever you identify those groups for us, and we'll come and do stakeholder groups with them in person. But that supplements the larger stakeholder feedback that we get in the online tool, but we bring that all in a report that helps design the search and also the profile of your next superintendent. And you'll see that last bullet there. In that stakeholder report, we really believe that drives the full process that we do in our search process. And this graphic just shows that. So we really talked about how we customize our protocols, and I'll walk you through that in a minute when we talk about each of the phases. But regardless of how we customize each of those steps for you, one of the things that we really encourage, and of course it's your search, so you will direct this at the end of the day, but we really encourage that the first thing you get out the door is that online survey. And really utilize that with us to help design the rest of the search. And so as you see that, we take that online survey result, the report from that, and we use that extensively in all the other phases of our search. So let's talk about recruiting and advertising, right? The days of simply crafting a job description, posting and distributing a job description, and then waiting for applications to come in is long gone. So we're committed to very intentional and bias-free recruitment strategies that will make sure that you have the most qualified, diversified pool you can possibly have. So we still use those traditional advertising venues. We still suggest that you advertise with AASA, the American Superintendents Association, as a widespread nation organization. There are some other paid advertising venues that potentially we think that are worth a return of investment. But we also use the most popular digital platforms and social media. And the combination of those really is intended to appeal to the broadest audience, right? There are some candidates out there that would never see this job posting via LinkedIn. That's just the way it's just going to happen, right? They may read it online looking for, in the AASA posting, and the reverse is true. So we want to make sure that we get as many venues lined up as possible in terms of our announcement. But that third bullet up there really is at the crux of why you want to hire a search firm, quite honestly. And that is that McPherson Jacobson, we actively engage our network of consultants. So remember back to I said, well, it is important for you where our national presence is, where we have consultants, where we have regional offices, and where we connect. Because that allows us to actively recruit and vet, when we do background checks, actively recruit the best talent available that matches your criteria. About 50%, regardless of where our search happens across the country, about 50% of our applicants come from out of state, regardless of where that state is. That number's a little higher here because who wouldn't want to come to Colorado, right? We don't have necessarily that high return in some other states. I won't name them specifically. But the fact that we have folks all across the country that are doing the work or are very close to the work, and when I talk about the work, I mean the work of school districts all across the country, it really allows us to leverage personal connections and relationships across the country as we recruit candidates. Every vacancy that we have, we distribute, or every vacancy that we're searching for, we distribute to not only 5,000 potential applicants who have signed up to get our distribution, but to every single consultant in the country. And we start working along with the criteria and start working to find those strong referrals for people that match that criteria. And then that last bullet is important in that we really have a strong commitment to not recruiting our previously placed candidates. We don't represent candidates or any specific candidates. Nobody pays us a fee. We don't have a stable of candidates that we're waiting to place. We work solely for the Board of Education. And later on, I'm going to tell you about what our retention numbers look like, and they're very strong. We're very proud of that. We wouldn't have that level of retention of placements if we cherry picked our own placements for the next best job or the next opportunity that came along. Now, that said, if someone we've placed in a job chooses to apply for another, we're not going to tell them they can't apply. That's not my point. But we don't, in some places, it doesn't happen much in Colorado, but in some places where we work, we see that is the MO of some folks. They have a stable of candidates, specifically preferred candidates, that they really try to move up to the next best job when that opportunity arises. We don't do that. So I talked about our 5-phase search protocol. I'm going to show you a graphic that will outline that in a little bit. But it's a process. Our 5 phases is a process we've been using for 3 decades. It's time tested, proven results. But that said, I would argue that no 2 searches that we do, at least I've done about almost 40 searches now in the last 4 years. And I can guarantee that no 2 of those searches looked exactly alike. Some were much more similar than others, but even while we have very, very tested and proven protocols, we know that every community is different, every board is different, every district's needs are different. And so this is not our search, this is your search. We will tell you what we think are best practices and how we go about doing that. We're not going to require you to do the work. That's not what I mean when I say we customize our protocols. But we will adjust our path and our objectives based on the needs that you identify for us when we design the search. So that includes the timelines, that includes what type of interview process we're going to use. Is it solely going to be the board? Or are you going to use some community groups? Are you going to use stakeholders? What does that look like? What is the expectation of your community? Some communities expect, hey, we elected you board members to do this. That's your sole employee. Go do it. Other communities will say, hey, this has got to be an inclusive process. We expect to be at the table. We expect it to be very transparent. We can make all of that happen. We don't have a canned bank of interview questions. Interview questions are specific to each search and based on the criteria that you all come up with as we work through the design phase. And then we as consultants are directly accessible to board members anytime during the search. You don't have to go through a coordinator. You don't go through our home office. If you choose McPherson and Jacobson, you will either call Randy Zila or me if you have any questions at any time. So let's talk about our 5-phase approach. So we talk about this in the first phase. Phase 1 is a design phase. And I want to highlight the fact that the very first line on this graphic in white text says we meet with the board too, and then it has some bullets underneath that. I'm not going to go bullet by bullet. You can read this as your leisure, but this is the first time that we engage with the full board. We take an hour and a half or 2 hours. We have a process through which we work to design the blueprint of the search. Part of that in Colorado is because that's a statutory requirement that you do that in an open meeting. So we will meet with you and we will go all the way through that. We'll provide you with comparative salary data so that you can identify the salary range, which by law you have to post, those types of things. So we design the search with you first step toward customization. We don't come in with the blueprint for the search and say, here it is, fill in the blank, and that's how we're going to approach this search. Phase 2, we recruit. We call the recruiting phase. That's when we go and do our work after we've designed the blueprint and gotten it out the door, got the posting out the door from our phase 1 work. So phase 2 and phase 3 is where we recruit and evaluate talent for your vacancy. And notice that it does not say at the top of either of those columns, meet with the board too. This is what you pay us to do. This is when we leave and we go do the lion's share of our work. So there will be several weeks here where you may kind of, not, I mean, we will update you every time there's a decision-making point, and we will send frequent updates on developments. But this is when we're doing the lion's share of the work. Also, this is highly confidential work because, as you know, by Colorado law, right, until you've named your finalists, all this information is confidential. So that's what we do in phases 2 and 3. And then phase 4, notice again, it begins with meet with the board too. So this is our second engagement, full engagement with the board. And at this point, we will come with you and we will meet an executive session. And we will present, you get to see all candidate applications, whether they have any business being in the pool or not. You see them all. We're not keeping anything hidden from you. But our job, what you hire us to do, is to take your criteria, recruit candidates, screen candidates, vet candidates. And so we do that heavy lifting for you so that when we come to this executive session, because remember, all candidate information at this point is still confidential, we're going to outline what we consider to be the candidates who are most qualified. We will, prior to this meeting, prepare you with their materials. We will prepare you with video interviews that they've produced. You will review all of that information individually, but then we will come together in executive session in that phase 4, review all of that information, and the objective for the outcome of this meeting is that you adjourn or that you reconvene in open session from executive session, announce your finalists in open session, and then we move forward with the interview process. So the objective for phase 4 is to identify in summary, is to identify your finalists. All right. And that typically takes about 8 to 12 weeks from start to finish. Now, I asked Erin if she would place at your table or at your workstation. This time, this is a more specific timeline. So your packet has a timeline based into like segments of months or segments of weeks. Dr. Zila put together this more specific timeline that really just bookends. If you were to select McPherson and Jacobson, we could start this week getting our stakeholder survey out the door. As we said, we really encourage you to start with that. We would get the stakeholder out. February 10th is a date that he's tentatively identified for this phase 1 meeting that's on the screen in front of you, right, to design the search, the blueprint for the search. And then if you flip it over, you'll see that it takes you to about the beginning of that second week in April, where you would interview and select your superintendent. So that puts just some more detailed dates around what a timeline would look like. Still keeps you in relatively the sweet spot for searches. You're getting a little bit toward the back end of that, but not too badly. Of course, if dates don't work, dates line up, you need to move a little quicker, you want to move a little slower, we can do that because we're customizing this as we go. I will say that there are some facets of our timeline that need to move in concert with another facet of the timeline. So while we can, for example, we really need about 10 days or so from the closing date of the applications till the date that you will have videos to look at, right? That's just time that we need to do that work. So if we would extend the posting period, for example, if you wanted to do that, then we'd subsequently have to move that other date. But there are some dates that can move independently. But again, that would be determined in phase 1 when we all come together. So after phase 4, go into the interview process and your candidate is selected. And then phase 5, we refer to as transition. And so before I leave this slide, I want to focus specifically a little bit on phase 5. And because this, I think, is truly one of the delineators in the search process that may differentiate among search firms. And so one component of our transition work is the establishment of year one performance objectives and measures. That's pretty much a non-negotiable. I mean, if you told us you didn't want to do that, we wouldn't do it. But that's not one of those things that we say, well, maybe we'll do this or not. That's really important, right? And it's really important regardless of who, in our mind, it's really important regardless of who you hire. That's a really important thing. So typically we come back about maybe, 20 days, 30 days into the new superintendent's tenure. So sometime after July 1, and they've gotten their feet on the ground. And we, in a work session format, we work with both the board and the superintendent to establish these performance objectives. But beyond that, we don't propose specific transition activities because our approach is that we are going to design appropriate transition activities and support for your new superintendent with you, because we don't propose that we're going to know exactly what your new superintendent needs. We don't know who you're going to hire. So for example, is your new superintendent local or are they from out of state? Are they experienced or are they novice? Do they have significant experience around student achievement and instruction, but maybe they have very little experience around finance and budgeting or something like that? So the idea of that we're going to evaluate transition needs, we're going to design a plan for that ongoing support. Now, that ongoing support is not part of our initial fee. We don't build that in because, like I said, we don't know what that support is going to look like. We also don't know if we're the most appropriate people to provide that support. And I'll give you an example. The last two searches, the last two small rural searches that I did, both in mountain communities, hired superintendents, relatively novice, not relatively, both novice superintendents, but both of those superintendents already had a place reserved in the Rural Superintendents Academy run by the Colorado Education Initiative. The Rural Superintendents Academy does a great job of building network support for new superintendents. They include a year of executive coaching. George Welsh, former Colorado Superintendent of the Year, leads that group, and they provide really, really strong support. There really was no need for us to step in and charge the district for us to provide transition services, when in both of those situations, we probably would have just resulted in having too many cooks in the kitchen and having the district pay for something they didn't need to pay for, because there's a cost to the Colorado Rural Superintendents Academy. Right. So in that regard, what we wanted to make sure was that there were proper supports and transitions for every superintendent we placed. We might not be the best people to do that. And if we're not, that's fine. We have a host of services available. We do superintendent evaluation. We do strategic planning. We can do executive coaching. We do all of those services, and they're available at a value-added fee. But there's no sense in us including that up front in a fee to you when you don't know whether you're going to need that or not. So it's a little different approach that we take, but that's part of what we do in phase 5, is work to evaluate where your current new hire is in terms of their level of competency and skill set, and look to build upon that. So another thing I want to highlight that was from that first slide is the fact that we consider to be very high value firm with inclusive pricing. So the first bullet, you have whatever proposals you have in front of you from whomever, you don't have to take my word for it, but our transparent pricing is the most competitive in the industry. Very simply, McPherson Jacobson does not get beat on price. Almost wherever we work, in almost any state, wherever we work. And our proposed fees and expenses always include our online survey tool. They include stakeholder meetings and in-district consultant days. They include the paid advertising that we recommend. They include third-party background checks. They include consultant travel, and they include the candidate videos. And so whenever you compare, as in any comparison, when you have different proposals, make sure you compare the details, right? Additional on-site consultant support, we bill at $1,200 a day, which is typically about half of what most of our competitors across the country we see. We don't charge a per diem or upfront expenses. All expenses incurred, travel expenses or other expenses incurred by our consultants are invoiced directly for reimbursement with no markup. And then again, the last, but any of our additional services are available at the board's request, but they're not included as a potentially unnecessary upfront cost. And so page 22 of your proposal details that our cost proposal, inclusive cost proposal for this search in greater detail. And then as I start to wrap up here, the sustainability of our leadership. Now, I will tell you that these data points are not in-year data. So they need to be updated they have not been updated for 25, 26, but it's longitudinal data, so the points don't move much. But one of the things that we're most proud of is over the last 5 years, almost 80% of the folks who have been placed through a McPherson Jacobson search are still in the position for which they were hired. 60% after 10 years and 40% after 15. So, you look at that, you look at the middle bullet there, right? And you think about that in terms of maybe, an academic grading scale, and you say, well, you barely made a passing grade, right? 60% is, barely passing on most grades. I would argue, if you bat 600 in the major leagues, you're going to the Hall of Fame. But in the realm of superintendent tenure, as I'm sure you know, turnover is so high and so frequent that we're really proud of these numbers. I'll also say I'm not naive enough to believe that there's not some measure of good luck behind these numbers, right? It's not all skill, but it's not all good luck either. I think the work that we do up front to make sure there are a lot of people out there that can do this job across the country, a lot of good folks that can do this job. Not everybody can do this job everywhere, however. And so the work we do up front with our stakeholder work and our work with the board to really identify not only someone that is a really highly skilled administrator and leader, but also a good fit for Estes Park, that's what drives those numbers. So lastly, what sets us apart? Our stakeholder engagement, we're very proud of, and our reporting and communication to the board that follows that. Obviously, it's your choice to do with that what you will. But I think once you see the result of our stakeholder report, you'll find out why that is so important if you choose to use us. The combination of our local and national consultants. So we bring folks, Randy Zila lives 45 minutes from Estes Park, right? He knows the area. He's been here a long time. So, I'm 2 hours down the road in Colorado Springs. So we know Colorado, we know the area. That's why we do so many Colorado searches. We know Colorado better than anybody in the industry. But we also have that national outreach. We have our our regional directors and our national consultants. And I'll give you a real life example of how that works. It happened today. So on my way up here, I got a call from a consultant that I don't know, a McPherson and Jacobson consultant in Oregon. We're doing a search in South Central Oregon. I don't know this individual, but there's a candidate in that search who formerly worked in Colorado Springs when I served as superintendent at Cheyenne Mountain. Our regional director in Washington, who's overseeing the Oregon search, told this consultant, call Walt Cooper, here's his number. I bet he knows that candidate and can provide some background. So this candidate called me. I did know that candidate. Was able to provide some background, and that would have never have happened if we just relied on references or previous employers that folks list on an application. It just doesn't happen. Nobody's going to list a reference that's going to answer the phone and say, oh yeah, I know them. Maybe you better keep looking, right? It's just not going to happen. So the manner in which we can identify and vet candidates through that national, I told you, it's important to you in Estes Park that we have that presence, and that's why. The degree to which we customize our protocol, like I said, we know what best practices are. We have a lot of successful experience, but we're not going to drive anything past you that you don't think is going to work well for your community and your desires. We have competitive pricing and high value service. We may not have the curb appeal and the bells and whistles of some of our competitors. We know that, but we have made a conscious choice to not do that. We have decided that it is better to make sure that we provide a high value on the pieces that do result in great outcomes, in search outcomes. And if you compare the outcomes of all of the firms across the country that do this work, the firms that are good and the firms that have sustained and are around, like McPherson and Jacobson, the outcomes are very, very similar, and they should be, right? It's not the inputs that count so much, it's the outcome. And so we have made it a point to invest our time and our energy in those facets that result in high quality searches and good outcomes. So we know we don't have the curb appeal of some firms, but we're fine with that. We can continue to support the board, as I said, with things like executive coaching or board development, governance work, any of that sort of stuff. We're happy to do that. We like to do that. We may not be the best fit for any or all of these with you as an individual group. We may be the best fit across all of them. That's for you to decide, and for you to decide if you want to spend that money, not for us to include in a fee that you may or may not choose to have the service. And then finally, our track record. We stand on our experience and the strength of our references. You've got more that we have page, whatever it is in your packet. You've got page 30 has some very specific references that we've listed to call that are recent searches that Randy or I have conducted. You have the list of Colorado searches, more than 70 in the back. If you know some folks there, we would love for you to make unsolicited reference calls. Don't just call the folks, right? I'm not going to list a reference that's going to say, oh yeah, maybe you ought to pick somebody else. So don't take my word for it. Call somebody else. Call someone you know, because we love to have unsolicited reference calls because we know what you're going to hear. You're going to hear good things. We've done really, really good work for districts across the country and especially in Colorado. So with that, I'm going to stop and would be happy to entertain any questions or clarifications that you might have, or vacate the podium and let you get on with the rest of the work that you have in front of you. Thank you so much for this opportunity.
Questions?
Thank you so much for your presentation. You actually did already answer one of my questions within
how
the
good we are?
presentations. That was excellent. Thank you very much. And I would just like to know what your general impression of the market is right now. There are several school districts in Colorado who are also looking for superintendents, and how you kind of balance that with the competition and the applicant pool and working with multiple school districts.
Yeah, very good question. So right now, for example, my colleagues and I'm leading the search in Eagle County. My colleagues, Dr. Sinner and Dr. Zila, are leading the search in Steamboat. Dr. Sinner is leading the search in Gunnison, and another superintendent colleague, a former superintendent colleague, Dr. Happenstall, is leading the search in Rangeley. Those are the searches in Colorado we currently have going on. So many of those pools have overlapping candidates, right? Very few of those pools will surface with shortlisted candidates that are synonymous. The reason being is they may all be very qualified leaders, but they're not a match for those individual communities. So across all of our searches, we communicate frequently. We share what we've learned in vetting and all that, as you would expect us to, right? But we also talk about what does the pool look like, who is very strict. So in one of those searches, I won't name it specifically, but I said to one of my colleagues, this individual I think is in both pools. My understanding is that they're in both pools. I can tell you that I think they would be a good fit for X. I am not going to move them forward in Y. And so that kind of communication and work among colleagues is really important, is because I said there are a lot of really talented folks out there. But if you're highly talented at one game and put into another, you may be just setting them up for failure, right? So we do that. You asked about the quality of the pool, right? Again, that I would say that the most important determiner of that is the desirability of the job itself. And the desirability, there are many factors to that, but it's very hard to overcome salary as a driving factor, availability of housing, and affordability if there is availability. So we found, I think, and I think your next presenters will probably also tell you this, those three things likely drive folks into or out of a pool more than any other thing, right? So, and as the candidate pool across the country gets smaller, it's still really good. The candidate pool that I'm working with right now in Eagle County is stellar. So there are still a lot of good folks that are looking to make some moves, either sideways or upward. But those three, you've got to be prepared to really step up to the plate on those three facets before you can really effectively evaluate anything else. The cost of poker continues to go up. Does that answer your question? Okay.
Other questions?
So maybe can you talk a little bit more about you said you have like a database of around 5,000 candidates, but they're not previously placed folks. So who is that? There are folks that reached out to you, or who is that typically?
They may be those folks may be previously placed. So we don't charge a fee to represent any candidate. Nobody is, becomes part of we're not headhunters in that regard, right? But anyone, whether they are a previous candidate or not, can sign up for our direct notifications that we send out. Many times our previously placed candidates just unsubscribe, right? They got their job, they found their job, they're not interested in getting that. So that's why I said we don't actively recruit folks that we have previously placed, but we do have repeat customer. We're not in the business of repeat customers as boards, trust me. We only want to be here one time. We don't, but so we do have, some folks who would come out of a McPherson Jacobson placement, go into a pool, compete very well, and end up being selected. So we don't eliminate that, but we don't actively recruit them into pools. So we have an active list of, on any given day, around 5,000 that get that notification probably, and I'm on that list, right? I get them, so I know, and sometimes it can be a little daunting. I think sometimes I get like 6 a day because we have a lot of stuff going. But that's the push notification that we do directly to candidates. Everything else through our socials is a little more passive.
And then you also mentioned that we're okay, but we're a little bit late in the scheduling of things. This proposed schedule, is there any places there you think we can shorten things? I know you mentioned certain things takes this.
I think we could shorten it. I think we could shorten that a little bit. But I would also say that going the way that schedule is placed right now doesn't really put you at a disadvantage. I don't think, especially understanding this is for whatever reason, and maybe we're sort of our own worst enemy in this, I guess. There aren't a lot of Colorado openings being searched, right? Usually, we have 5 going currently. I think, I don't know about other firms. I know of a couple that are just starting out there. right? But it's not one of those years where by this time of the year, we already know of nearly 24 openings or something like that, right? So I think you're still in really good shape. So I would not, especially if we could get started this week with the upfront stuff. And then you're in, in the next, with the inside of 2 weeks, you're designing the blueprint. Because once you finish that phase one work with us, getting that put together, out the door, and on the street happens very, very quickly. So I think if you're not pushing back past mid-April, you're gonna be okay.
I appreciate your comprehensive presentation, and all the questions that I had written down were answered. So
Wow.
thank you.
Tell you, I'm gonna buy a lottery ticket on the way out of town, I think.
All right, thank you very much.
Okay, thank you. I will again say thank you and leave you to your work. Aaron, do I need to do anything? We just close out of this? Got it. Okay. Good luck. Best of luck in search.
Thank you. I'm Dr. Bond and Mr. Ewert, please join us at the podium.
Safe travels. Walt and I were close colleagues as superintendents. Okay. Oh, slideshow.
Slideshow.
Okey-dokey. Well, good evening, Board of Education, Madam Chair, and we have a superintendent online somewhere, Bonnie.
Yeah.
Congratulations and on your move. If you're listening, I thank you for the good work that you've done here in Estes Park. I come to this this evening with a little different approach in that I have a house here in Estes Park. And we've had it for quite a few years, and my brother and I, we retreat up here. And as I've always said, as goes the school district, as goes the community. And I am very proud to say that as I go back and I watch board meetings, and as I see where the focuses are here, and as I was driving up the mountain today, I said to myself, if I were a superintendent, would I want to be here? And the answer to that is absolutely yes, for so many different reasons, which we'll get into in just a little bit. We do appreciate the opportunity to share our proposal with you. You will hear some overlapping kinds of concepts, but you'll also hear some very distinct differences. And I want this board to know that as your tenure as a board member, this is probably the most important decision that you will make. Not hiring a firm, but hiring the next superintendent. Okay?
Absolutely.
Very,
To be
very
clear.
important. As a matter of introduction, my name is Brian Ewert. I'm the former superintendent of Littleton Public Schools and the former superintendent of Inglewood Schools in the metropolitan area. My full-time residence is in Centennial. I retired after 38 years in public education, having served in almost every single role in public education, except for a special education director. I never did that. That is hard work. I retired 3 years ago and became an HYA associate because this was my opportunity, given my experience of 13 years as superintendent, to give back, to help boards of education go through the process of hiring a new superintendent. But not only that, it's what comes after that too, that I think we'll talk about in just a little bit, that I think also will set us apart a bit as well. They may be online tonight, but we have in the back office, we have Dr. Mike Ritchie. He is the VP of Hazard Young and Atia. And I believe if he's not also in another board meeting tonight, he's probably watching. But I don't think Dr. Nancy Perez is here as well. But they are very interested and very involved in all of our searches, and we are in contact with them on a regular basis. Mike will actually be very much an integral part of this particular search once we get going, should the board choose HYA. Go ahead.
Yeah, and hi, I'm Dave Baugh. I'm the former superintendent of the Aspen School District, and it's great to be back in a mountain town. I live in Parachute, Colorado, where my wife is the current superintendent. And it's kind of in the veins. And so, like Brian was saying, this is a way for me to continue to contribute, continue to give back to the profession that I value so much. I also went through an HYA search to wind up in Aspen, and that's why I opted to go with HYA as the search firm. The rigor, their back office support, their professionalism was second to none in my experience. I was a superintendent for 10 years in Pennsylvania. We won't dwell on that, but and then 4 years in Aspen, and now, like I said, I currently live in Parachute, Colorado. So,
And I've never gone through a McPherson or an HYA search, but I have gone through 2 CASB searches. And you're familiar with CASB, the Colorado Association of School Boards, which we'll talk more about in a little bit. We are their premier partner. I will say that it is so critical as you recruit candidates to come into a polished and quality process for candidates, because they are watching and they are also interviewing you and your community. And that's why this community engagement piece that we're going to talk about in a little bit is so critical. Did I just hit the button? No, Brian.
it's arrow.
I wasn't.
Wait a sec.
Do I have to hit escape now?
Yep. Back into the slideshow. We thought that, we would crush technology after COVID,
So is it just the arrow?
but
that
it
goes
just
forward?
turns out to be a little tricky. Yeah, that one. There you go. So as you know, as you probably know, we're a preferred partner with CASB. I actually have a boot in CASB and a boot in HYA. And I do leadership development for CASB on the Western region, and CASB is trying to increase its impact in the state. They also decided they needed to do an RFP for a search firm. 4 submitted, and HYA was selected as having the most comprehensive reach and impact in the ability to attract talent to Colorado. So we went through the search. We talked about Dr. Nancy Perez, our president. She was part of the team that presented to CASB, and Mike Ritchie was with me as well. Brian was out of the country, but we were very pleased to go through that process, and that brings us here. You have some data about HYA. Obviously, we're not going to read it to you. We have done a lot of searches, 48 in Colorado's, in the HYA portfolio. We've got 130 nationwide associates, about 48 different states, and that appealed to CASB. One of the main things to really think about, and Mac and Jake was talking about it too, is the retention rates. The superintendency is a very demanding job, and the good high flyers wind up getting poached. HYA won't let someone they've placed into an HYA search for at least 3 years. So they strongly discourage it after that, and they flat out won't put you in a search if they've placed you. And then the other thing, and I can speak to this, 75% of the candidates that we place, have been actively recruited. So I got a phone call from HYA and said, hey, we know you want to live in Colorado. What do you think about a small town called Aspen? And I said, let me do some research. I'll call you back. I said, well, that might be interesting. And long story short, I took the Aspen in July of 2020. And that was an interesting journey across the country that summer. So anyway, that's a little bit about CASB. As a result of the CASB partnership, we have a master services agreement so that you don't actually need to go through the whole RFP process, though we are always happy to do so. And the master services agreement means we can start tomorrow. And I think
I would like to point out one thing, and that is this idea of specifically going out and recruiting. So how do we do that? That's why community engagement is so critical to our process, is that we want to hear what your leadership team says, the principals, the teachers, and this community about your district. We have to hear that for us to be able to go out and provide those matches. I have my own portfolio of people that I talk to. I know Dave does. HYA, we have associates all across the nation, and we are out there saying, here are the things that we need. For example, one of the districts that we did a search for was going to go out for a bond. They didn't want a superintendent who had no bond or mill levy or engaging with the electorate around raising taxes. They had to have someone who had that experience. And so that was a critical piece for us to know. And we know who those people are that are passing bonds and mill levy overrides in their community. So we went out and talked to those people and recruited those people. So it's very intentional about how we go after folks. When we get them, they stay around. 94% of the superintendents in HYA, they stay in their position for more than 3 years, which is actually a pretty good statistic. So I won't read all this to you, but just a couple of highlights. Our search team, along with all of our associates across the United States, we have vast experience in both in Colorado. Both Dave and I are highly connected in Colorado with current superintendents, former superintendents, assistant superintendents, principals who are looking to go to a rural school district. We have all of that experience as well. And again, I will say the most important part that I believe of our process is our community engagement, which we're going to talk more about in a little bit. I think it's second to none. It's where we flourish. It's when we're in front of your community, where we're asking them the questions and taking those notes and recording what they're saying and putting that in a final report to the Board of Education, to the community, and superintendent candidates are then reading that saying, I think that's a match for me. So we use that superintendent leadership, I guess district leadership report for not a better term, to actually go out and recruit, which is a very valuable tool for us. We can't do that without our online survey as well, and we can't do that without being in front of the community here in Estes Park. Okay. Right one.
So we talk about national recruiting. It is in Illinois. HYA is an Illinois-based company, but with associates in almost all 50 states. And you can see by this data that we throw wide nets. And sometimes they're hired from within state, and sometimes they're hired from out of state. What CASB was trying to get away from by turning to HYA was a lot of time there's a shuffling of superintendents. So you hire one, somebody backfills, and you've just jammed up the school district 2 districts over. So what they wanted to do was to increase the pool and increase the caliber of candidates. And you can see that HYA does that and does that well. You can see that they're pulling from basically all over this country to fill positions all over the country.
As a rough statistic, you had asked a great question about, so what is the pool like? I would say the pool doesn't look anything like it did 10 years ago, but it doesn't for teachers and it doesn't for principals either. So the same trend is happening for our superintendent pools as well. That being said, when we're out there recruiting, what I'm finding at the end of a search, it's about a third, and a third. About a third of the candidates are incredibly highly qualified and could come in and do the job and do it well. And so then you're splitting hairs, and that's our job, is to make sure that your job is very difficult in that final selection. And a third of them, they're fine. They'd be adequate. And then you have a third of folks that you're just not qualified to be the superintendent in that district. So you can see here, when we were in Pueblo, an incredibly diverse pool of candidates from all across the country. I wouldn't say that Pueblo is like Estes Park, but there was a lot of interest in being in Pueblo because of its outdoor activity, because it's in Colorado. Of course, many of those candidates hadn't been there to Pueblo. But what I'm saying is that we will, I believe, with our recruiting strategies, have a really good pool of candidates for Estes Park. I would invite you in the next day or so just to visit our website. Right now, and I think we're the only firm that does this, we post every superintendent job in the nation if we know about it. It doesn't matter if we're doing the search or if Mac Jake is or if it's Ray and Associates. We will post it if we know about it. It draws lots of candidates to our website. We currently are engaged in 15 searches, and I think that's up to 17 today just because of what happened today. And there are 205 other superintendent and cabinet searches on our website as well. As far as our active candidates, we do at HYA purge our candidate pool. If you were in there 10 years ago, you're no longer in there. You have to be an active candidate. So when we say we have 1,581 active candidates, that means that they're interested and they're in there and they're looking for positions across the nation. We have 44 active candidates right now from Colorado.
And so we think we'd be able to serve Estes Park well. We know the community, obviously. We also know Colorado, and we also know the nation and the national challenges. We think it's crucial for the kids in the district to have good leadership, and tone clearly starts at the top. And that's why HYA is so committed to going the distance with any school district, any school board that we serve. We don't stop once a superintendent is seated. We want to make sure that the vision, the mission, the beliefs are all part of the fabric of your next superintendent. That's crucial. And we'll be doing a lot of vetting and interviewing even before anyone makes it to interview with you folks. And that's part of it.
Now, I put a couple of your friends up here on the screen. Just because I love deer and I love elk, and I do know the difference. As I said, when I was driving up here, you see a herd of elk and another herd of deer as you're coming up the mountain. And I asked myself the question, what would I be looking for if I wanted to be a superintendent up here in the mountains? What would I be zooming in on as an external party? And I just wrote some things down. It's, first of all, everyone knows it's a great place to live in Estes Park, minus the wind a little bit, but it is a great place to live. You're at the gateway of Rocky Mountain National Park. You've got wildlife everywhere. And it's been my experience when I spend time up here, there's a real sense of community. When I'm in local stores, everyone cares about everyone up here, which matters to a new superintendent. But not only that, what's going on inside your school district is very impressive as an outsider looking in. First of all, you have a 94.2% graduation rate. Is it 100%? No. But your strategic plan, as I looked at it, is so incredibly student focused. 3, I think, tiers of your strategic plan. But academic achievement and growth, that's what we're here for. Real world learning, absolutely important, and wellness. So if I was the superintendent, I'd be looking at things like beliefs and vision and mission. I'd be watching school board meetings. Do they have respectful discourse? You don't have to get along or agree on everything, but there has to be a level of respectful discourse. And I just think that there are so many good things in this district. I think that recruiting for us is it's going to be obviously a challenge just because of the pool, but you have so much to offer here. And the work that's been done in the last several years is just outstanding. So kudos to you and kudos to Superintendent Bodie as well. And the elk. Okay.
As you can see, there's some similarities to the search process, right? There's steps that you all have to take regardless of whether you go with the firm or if you were to do it yourself. We don't recommend that if you want national impact, but we think, and you have a copy of in our proposal, the time frame, and we think we could have a superintendent for you by mid to late April. But the process is really important. We're both process driven. Dr. Ricci is process driven. Dr. Perez, process driven. We're all about the process because it works. And we have high levels of confidence in the process. We think we can get you a top tier slate.
Yep,
absolutely. I mean, absolutely. Great community. And it was funny, as I was listening to the prior presentation, I thought, oh, the other thing that I think is really important is a board that is focused on students and student achievement. Superintendents who have, I started out in special education, elementary school, and then came up through the ranks. And I still coach for a local school district just because I love working with kids. But if you love working with kids and if your board is clearly focused on what's good for kids and teachers, then we can find you good candidates, because that, at the end of the day, is one of the most important things to any superintendent. I have walked out of a job interview based on how board members were talking to each other. I'm like, oh no. No, I mean, life's way too short. Not going to do it. And I walked out into the parking lot and I called the search consultant. I said, please take me out of X district. I don't want to be in that search. Oh, it's a great district. Might be. They're going to pay a lot. They might. It's not worth it. And to most superintendents worth their salt, a good team forming a good team of 6 is fundamental to their success and to your success and to the success of the students. And that's at the end of the day what most of us get out of bed for.
So now we're going to dig into the process just a little bit. Similarly to what you heard earlier, we have an engage, recruit, and select and transition piece to each one. We'll talk just a little bit about each one. The board planning meeting is absolutely critical. So as soon as the Board of Education were to make a decision, we would get a workshop, we would get an open meeting where we would be talking about all of the steps that are involved in putting together this multi-month plan for recruitment. And we also then, after that planning meeting, we would want to get that 360 or the community survey out as soon as possible and get that data back as well, because that will help drive some decisions down the road. We also will have individual interviews with every board member and also the outgoing superintendent and anyone else that you want us to interview individually. Sometimes that looks like cabinet members, or sometimes that looks like principals, depending on the size of the district, depending on what the board needs. Again, everything is completely tailored to what you believe that the culture of this school district needs. Following that, we really dig into those focus groups. And we'll be up here for a day doing focus groups all over your community. We will work with you to talk about what other districts have done to get people to come out and to talk with us about their school district. We will make sure that teachers are there. We'll make sure that there's times before and after school for principals and teachers and staff. We'll make sure that there's opportunities for community members. We also will do weekends on Zoom as well. In Pueblo, there's a real working class where they just were working 8 to 5 and could not get out to come to a meeting. Great, let's do a Zoom. So we would have 25 people show up on a Zoom call, and we would do the exact same protocol that we did for that focus group. Those focus groups will drive everything that goes into that leadership report for this school district. And again, let me reiterate, that report is so valuable because it's the springboard for success between the board and the new superintendent and the community, because it was driven by community engagement. Okay, move on. And this gets to a little bit more specific.
Yeah, so you covered it very
Sorry.
well, but I do want to, we had a robust conversation about this, but we also talk with your students. You would be an integral part of the process. We think that student voice matters, partly because it's going to impact them, but also because they're going to become the leaders of tomorrow. And we're first and foremost former educators ourselves, and we think student voice is huge. So we would be talking with you. We talked a lot about using current technology to facilitate meetings. Absolutely. Flexible meeting times, that's huge. Diverse and inclusive, right? There's a lot of diversity in all of our communities now. We want to make sure everybody's voice gets captured as part of the final report that we're going to go to the street with. But we would be talking with, as Brian said, a wide array of your community. And you can see in the bottom left quadrant, potential focus groups that have been very successful in other Colorado districts. We recommend considering reaching out to them. It's very important to capture as much voice as possible in the planning phase, in the blueprint, if you will, of how it's going to unfold.
Associates love the most the focus group with high school kids.
Yeah.
They have been in your system K through 12. They know what's going on. They're eloquent, they're articulate, and they can share their experiences about what's gone really well and what the challenges that they've experienced as they've gone through school. And their voice is very important, like Dave said.
Yeah.
Still fighting that cold. Oof.
So again, we won't read all of this to you, but we do make a commitment and we stand by it and we do deliver on it. To recruit, active recruiting, calling people we know, tapping them on the shoulder, reaching out to our associates and asking them to think about who might be a good fit for a beautiful mountain town high in the Rocky Mountains. And then the selection piece, that's a huge part of it. We have a board portal, which is one of the things that's a little different. And every applicant will be in there. So you wake up at 3 a.m., you're kind of wondering what to do after the milk and cookies, you can go see who applied today. That's all part of it. It's also to avoid any potential conflict on the board. We don't want anybody thinking, oh, he's giving all the information to that board member. I want, no, everybody gets it at the same time. The flip side of that is we're available, not 24/7, but we're highly available. Let me tell you, we've got to draw a line somewhere. But we're highly available and we're working state and national conferences, all of those things. That's really a fundamental part of it.
During the focus groups, we ask one essential question at the end, is who do you know that might be interested in applying for this position? Because you have people in Estes Park that work in the Denver metropolitan area, in the Loveland, St. Vrain area. And they know people, and they know people in these school districts that might be interested in applying. So we do ask them at every focus group, do you know of anybody? And then if you do, send that name to us and we'll give them a call to see, number one, if they're qualified, but then number two, if they're interested as well. The other thing that we've done in Colorado in previous searches that's been pretty successful to recruit high-level candidates is to send this notice out to Wyoming, to Nebraska, to Utah, to New Mexico, to your surrounding states. The Mountain West, in Colorado again is a hot spot for people who want to live here. And so know that this is not passive by any means. We are out there recruiting hard and finding people that we believe will match the criteria that your community has set forth in the leadership report. So. Want to talk about that?
I guess I
I get-
did
you already
kind of
did.
talk
You got it.
about the board portal. I don't need to belabor that. If you have any questions on it, we can take those now or we'll just keep going.
It does protect the district from Cora. There's lots of confidential information that is available to the Board of Education and whoever you select, probably the secretary to the board, to have access to this information. And we'll go through the confidentiality of that as well. But we also will work with your IT team and give them examples of public-facing websites to manage everything that's coming in so that your community on any given day can look at your website to say, oh, look what's going on with the search. Look where they are. Look where they are in the process. Oh, they're getting down to, looking at candidates. They have a slate. So your community will know what's going on via that website that we will help your webmaster develop.
Yeah. And part of the beauty of the portal is we're checking it daily. It's managed and is available to us as well as to you. And we are checking it daily to make sure it's up to date and accurate.
There are 6 tabs in the portal. And honestly, I think the portal really sets us apart from any other search firm for accessibility for the board at any given time about the important information that you're getting. There are 6 tabs, and at any given time when you're in the portal, you'll be able to see all of this confidentially. And some of this will come public facing when it's appropriate and when the board decides it needs to be public facing. But as we get started, it's all just for your eyes only. We'll talk a little bit about transition services available in just a little bit. I want to talk a little bit about this because our day in the district, which I think is an incredibly valuable tool that we use that I'm not sure that other firms do. I don't know for sure, but I do know how valuable it is to us. So ultimately, it is the board's decision on who you hire. However, when you announce those 2, 3, or 4 finalists by state statute, they are considered your finalists. That means they're in it to the end of the game and their names are going to be public. And they are going to spend an entire day in the district. Sometimes it's a day and a half. We can talk about that at the planning meeting as well. But at that day in the district, not only do you give them a tour and let them get a feel for what Estes Park is, not just as a school district, but as a community, they also then will meet the community in these open forums. There's lots of ways that we can handle these with as far as facilitation and asking questions, but the QR codes are given when each candidate is up in front of their community with real-time feedback directly to the Board of Education. So people are sitting there with their cell phones, they can hit that QR code and say, this person seems like they're highly qualified, but I don't think that they're a fit for this district because of X, Y, or Z. So those are the kinds of things, and this happens in real time. Where does that data go? It goes directly to our HYA database, which you will have access to on the portal. So in real time, you'll get to see while they're in front of your community, answering tough questions from your community, what your community thinks about your 3 or 4 finalists or whatever you've decided. So it's a pretty powerful tool.
And that being said, sometimes there's community members who are uncomfortable using the QR codes, and your associates will gather written feedback from the community members that will be uploaded to the board portal for your review. So we make sure that everybody has access. Everybody, like we said, everybody has a voice in the process.
Yep. Email, like, we've been in districts where I don't do QR codes. I can't do that. It's too difficult. Fine. Send me an email. Give me a call. Give me your feedback. I'll take it down. So we get that feedback from people so that they can't say, well, I wanted to provide feedback, but I didn't know how to do the QR code.
Yeah.
Although after COVID, I think we all figured that out, even at restaurants. So. Again, this is for discussion when we were to meet, to set out the timeline. We believe that this timeline would work. You'll see that we say now through early February. We would get started as soon as possible, this week, if that was what the board decided. But we believe that we would have a superintendent hired by mid to the third week in April. We think that timeline makes sense and it doesn't cut anything short.
It allows a full quality interview, including reference checks. I'm sure you've seen some of the national press where there's been some slippery characters out there who made it through, and having us here, we do a lot of that work to make sure that you'll never be embarrassed by your next superintendent, at least as a result of the hiring process. So, yeah.
Okay, why don't you talk a little bit about this? So I think another thing that sets us apart is some of the work that we do with superintendents that we place. And some of these things are new, relatively new because of our partnership with CASB. And the first one that Dave is going to talk about is this HYA Transition Academy.
And this is really neat, and this is relatively new for HYA, but it's coming with very high regard from the people, both HYA superintendents that have done it and folks who have not come through the HYA process. They've done it. There are some key deliverables that just about every superintendent needs to have. And as a new superintendent to Colorado, this would have been a phenomenal opportunity to have this. I had 10 years of experience in Pennsylvania. The alphabet soup here is very different from Pennsylvania. Lots of P's, lots of C's here. But this would have been a wonderful thing, even for a veteran superintendent, to go through and experience the 100-day plan, the key performance indicators. All of these are things that any superintendent really needs to be thinking about. Additionally, we encourage a board member to attend with their superintendent. So it's not just something the superintendent goes through. It's a national cohort for a board member and the superintendent for that first year. And it's gets you these 4 essential deliverables.
I think we would have both liked that as new superintendents.
Boy, even every time I had 3 superintendencies, it would have been good to go through this process. It's a great
And this
structure.
comes at no cost to the district. The other transition item that's relatively new is the superintendent evaluation process for 1 year. And that is, there are very few districts in the state that have established high-quality evaluation processes for their number 1 employee, the superintendent. We have high-quality evaluations for teachers and for principals mandated by the state of Colorado. That is not true with superintendents. There are basically 4 gray areas that you're supposed to evaluate your superintendent on. This particular superintendent is one that we've developed in conjunction with our partnership with CASB, because they too have gotten lots of calls from districts across the state saying, we don't know what to do with a superintendent evaluation. Now we have a tool to do that. This is part of that first year. There's a framework. I'm not going to go into it tonight. It's not that important to hear about it yet. And there's also 8 nationally, there's 8 standards that basically across the nation are used to evaluate superintendents. Colorado has none, but there are basically 8, and this one is based on 8 of those standards. And then also there is a survey. I won't do that tonight either, but it's a 360 survey, and the board and the superintendent to agree on who gets that survey. Is it just going to be, will it be teachers? Will it be principals? Will it be the community? Depending on the size of district, districts choose different ways to go with as far as the 360. So we can talk about that, but that also is included in the package.
And we know every district's different. And so you might be engaged in a construction project or a bond or acquiring new buses. And that might be one of the primary chunks of work for the superintendent to oversee for that year. So we can customize the survey to district initiatives. There's a whole section of the survey that allows us to do that while recognizing the 8 sort of national standards. Which, and no, we're pretty sure no other search firm has as robust an evaluation tool. And it's meant to support and drive a really good conversation between the board and their one employee.
So in full transparency to you and the community, our base fee is 15% of the hired superintendent's salary, not to exceed 23,000. It includes those things that you see that are bulleted there. 5 days in the district by HY Associates, doing all of the things that we talked about, focus groups, meeting with board members, interviews, those kinds of things. We have travel expenses in there, but we both live in Colorado, so we're really talking about mileage. Just like other firms would say, it's mostly mileage. Our third-party background checks, there is a cost to that, should the board want that, and we highly recommend that, given what's happened in Iowa, what's happened on the East Coast with around some superintendents that maybe didn't have the credentials they said they did, or they weren't citizens of the United States. So there's been some lawsuits that have been filed. And so we really do highly recommend that third party external look, and it's a deep dive into someone's background. We're going to do all the background checks. We're going to do all of the Google searches. We're going to do all the social media stuff. But this is a third party that goes deep on everything related to their college experience, their college degrees, any criminal records,
Financial
records, anything that you can find. So,
Yeah.
But again, it's not required. We encourage you to call references as well. I think that HYA's reputation across Colorado and across the country is impeccable. And these are just some people that have spoken out and provided us with some comments. The two that are most recent up here that I was involved with, number one, when they hired the superintendent in Littleton Public Schools, they hired HYA. And that is from the president of the board there. And then I did lead the search in Gresham Barlow School District out in Oregon. Again, a very good district. And I think that they were pleased with what we brought forward for them as well. And now we'll stop and maybe there's questions. Happy to answer any questions you might have.
Any more questions?
I actually, this is very rare for me. I don't have a question.
What?
But I would like to say, because the one thing I was going to ask about was student input when you were talking about those, the focus groups and things. And we have a very involved and active, wonderful, engaged superintendent's council. And they have their pulse on they have their finger on the pulse. That's the expression I was looking for.
And we do ask the superintendent or the principal or whoever's putting the group together, if it's a superintendent's group, to give us a highly diverse group.
Mhm.
Don't just give us the student council kids. Don't just give us the
Yeah.
athletes. Don't just give us the kids who are in marching band. We want all of those kids and any other subgroup of kids. And it absolutely is fascinating.
'Cause
We will
if-
have to draw straws about who gets to do that group because that's our favorite group.
If we're not doing this for the kids, why are we even here, right? So,
Exactly. Yeah.
so thank you for hitting on that. And I appreciated your focus on leadership, and I appreciated that your presentation was Estes specific, that you really looked into our district already, just in kind of, so I appreciated that. I appreciate your proactive approach. I appreciated that you touched on word of mouth, which in small communities and mountain communities like this, that is huge. So, yeah, thank you very much for the presentation and your time.
Any other board questions?
Question, so the 5 days on site, I'm assuming that can be split up. It's just more
Absolutely.
mileage back and forth.
Absolutely.
on
And
cost.
honestly,
Okay.
we are not very tight on that. I never have been on any of my searches. I think some consulting firms are really tight on it. I live an hour and a half away. I have a house here.
Okay.
It is easy for me to come and do an extra full Saturday of focus groups if that's what this board wants. So don't let that 5 days say, well, that's all. I am happy, and I know Dave is happy.
Yep.
We're happy to be here doing this work for Estes Park Board of Education.
And then one of your slides said 15 open postings. Was that national? Was that Colorado?
National.
National,
Yeah,
okay.
yeah,
And then
yeah.
what's going on with you guys right now? Colorado more specifically?
Nothing in Colorado right now.
Okay.
Yeah. Our last big surge, we'll see Aurora, Littleton, Pueblo was a big one, Strasburg. Those are the districts that we've done most recently.
Great.
The relationship with CASB is a relatively new one. Just kind of came together in December, actually. I think we inked the contract December 1st. And so this is our first full-blown search season. We've also been asked to work on developing the evaluation tool that we're shared with you this evening for Colorado specifically. And we're hoping to be a sort of benchmark for CASB as one of the offerings. We also do executive coaching, board governance relations. You know, CASB does a lot of work around governance. They're happy to come and work with the boards around that. So full slate of support for your superintendent, full slate of support for the board, should it be needed. But again, we don't want to put things into contracts up front that you might not need, right? So, and I will tell you, when I interviewed in Aspen, it was a 2-day interview, and we spent close to 8 hours with students over those 2 days. There was a lot of student voice in this HIA search. So that was part of its appeal. And that was candidly part of the most fun of the interview. So.
Other board questions? Great. Thank you very much for your time. Appreciate it.
Well, thank you very much for your time. And should you have any questions, please feel free to reach out to us. We'd be happy to honor those questions, answer those questions, rather. And it was a real pleasure to be here this
Sure
evening.
was. Nice to meet you all.
And
Thank you.
best of
As
luck.
well, thank you.
Yeah, best of luck.
See, moving on to agenda item 4.2, quarterly financial report, Brian Lund. Brian, give me a second. Sorry, Brian, go ahead.
No worries. All right, good evening. So I'll go through the quarterly financials first and then get into the mid-year budget revision, since that's also in the action items later on in the meeting. So through December, we're halfway through the year. You know, we do not get any state equalization, so that's why our revenue is shown very low. We'll start getting our revenue month and a half. Got my notice for my property taxes today. So those will start, that money will start coming in March. Then we get our first big wave because people start paying that in February. So that's why we're only at 14.5% through December, just because of how we are structured in our revenue. Overall, we're in our historic, we're right in track with where we normally are building wide. You can see centralized services. We're at 41%, and we have some money in contingency just because in our preliminary budget, we weren't 100% sure on the new assessed valuations that were coming out since it was an assessment year, and then also the change in how the percentage was allocated for education. So the number that was given in preliminary budget, we weren't 100%. I wasn't 100% positive that the state had the right number just because we didn't know where it was going to be. So we were conservative and put some program reserve money into contingency. So that's why that's not close to that 50%, just because that contingency number is a little bit higher, just because we didn't assign those to expenditures on the front end because we weren't sure we were actually going to get that revenue, if that makes sense. So that's kind of why normally that's right around 50% at mid-year. It's just not there this year just because of the uncertainties with that excess program reserve number based off of where assessed valuations were going to be coming in, since we didn't know that in May when we were building the budget. So you can see we're about 42% district-wide in expenditures at about 7.7 million so far through December. So that's the summary of the general fund. And then also capital, we did have some projects finish and go through the process in the second quarter. We had some work done around the high school gym to make sure that foundation wasn't going to sink and those types of things and get water penetration. We also got the lighting replaced in the elementary school gym over the winter break, and that was done in December. And then we are in the process of updating our phone system. It's towards the end of its useful life, and we did make a deposit on half of that system. So that's in there. And then we did purchase 2 new buses right after Thanksgiving at a total cost of not quite $302,000. We got those at a very discounted rate because we piggybacked on some larger districts' purchase agreements that they had with a vendor. So we got those for about half of what we got. 2 buses for the price of 1, basically, because we piggybacked on a larger district that spends millions of dollars a year on buses. So that was kind of what happened for capital. And then also the big thing that happened, we did make bond and principal interest payments on December 1st. You can see 1.35 million in principal payments and then $321,000 in interest. And then we'll have another interest payment in June, but so that's kind of how the bonds are structured. Everything else is in there, the check run, deposits, all those types of things. Do you guys have any questions over any of that information?
My question was on the money getting moved to food service, like a little over 200,000. Is that a one-time thing? Is that normal every year? Just what was the reason for that move of funds to food service?
You're talking about the fund transfer
Yes. in
in the budget, mid-year budget revision?
Mhm.
Okay, I'll get into that. Do you have any questions over the financial?
Sorry.
Yep. Yeah, I'll get into all that stuff here in a minute. All right. So on that note, I'll get into the mid-year budget. So mid-year budget. So Fund 7, that didn't change. We moved all that money July 1st. So that did not change from the preliminary budget. Within Fund 10, which is our largest fund, I kind of touched on that earlier. We weren't 100% sure on what the AV was going to come in for tax collections and those types of things. So you can see there's a increase in property tax revenue. And then also we have abatement that we are collecting in $242,000 that we did not know at preliminary as well. So that was also the increase in the property taxes. Other revenues have been changed to reflect what our actual allocations are. We got CTA allocation last Tuesday, those types of things. So all the revenue numbers have been updated to what the state is actually giving us. We will be giving all that money back in June, or majority of it, because it's categorical funding. So that's why in the notes, you can see like we have categorical buyout, we received $25,000 for Gifted Talented, those types of things. Then the other adjustment that is in there as compared to preliminary budget is 6E grants. So we were awarded a grant of 6E funding in October, and then we also submitted for some more 6E funds for summer school and some after school programming. So that was added in. We haven't heard on that award, but I put it in so we wouldn't have to come back in 2 months and do another budget revision. If we don't get the money, we're not going to spend it. We'll have to use general fund money to cover that expense. It won't be tied to the 6E. But we did put it in there, so then we have been getting awarded those funds in the past, so that's why I put it in. So then that way we have it moving forward. And then we kept the 3.5 million as the mill levy override. That was also in the preliminary budget, and that's what the board approved for the property taxes in December. And then, so fund balance transfers. So we have money coming in from Fund 7 because we closed out that program reserve. Transfer to Fund 21 is our food service. That did increase a little bit from preliminary budget to mid-year just because paper goods and some of those types of things have come in more expensive than what we thought they were. And typically we've always supplemented food service program or Fund 21 with a fund transfer from the general fund. We might not hit that 225. I think last year we budgeted about 212 and ended up moving 185. So, and that'll just change a little bit too, depending upon revenue from federal government for summer feeding and those types of things. That's kind of hard to predict what we'll get there. And I think we got a little bit more in that last year than what we thought. So that's why that transfer wasn't a full transfer in last fiscal year. So that's what those fund transfers are. Then we did not change, or I did not change the transfer to Fund 43, which is our capital project. That was the program reserve number that we budgeted to transfer in the preliminary budget, and I kept it the same because as part of the as part of the mill levy certification, we were going to use funds for retention incentives and those types of things in the coming up towards the end of the year. So, so you can see our total revenue did increase in general fund from 19.3 million to about 20.3 million. Like I said, that some of that is 60 funding, and then also some of that is that adjustment for the property tax, just because we weren't sure where the AVs were going to come in. As of right now, we don't have all 20.29 million appropriated. We have money sitting in contingency because, like I said, we don't know for sure what that retention incentive amount is going to be. So once we know that, we can move funds. Some other funds or expenses have come up with the facility long-range plan that we can use those contingency funds for. We had a pipe break in the elementary school over the weekend, so some of those funds could be used there too to offset the sucking up of water and those types of things in the 5th grade hall. Yep. And then whenever the board decides with the superintendent search, we can allocate those funds from the contingency reserve into the Board of Ed expenditure line for the search. So there's funds available. Like I said, we don't have, you can see our expenditures basically stayed the same at that 19.3. We have added a few positions with bringing in special ed and those types of things and expanding the special ed program within elementary. So there's about 890,000 that we haven't appropriated, and that's what we're going to use for the retention incentive and those types of things. So that's general fund. Any questions over general fund? Then the other fund that we did make some changes in is Fund 22, which is our federal grants. In May, we were going to apply for a Larimer County mental health grant. Other organizations within the community applied for those grants and were awarded those, so we decided not to. So that's why you'll see like the local went from 115,000 down to 40,000, because in the past we've been getting 75,000, but we couldn't use that for what we've used it for in the past, so we didn't apply for it. And we're getting the support from other organizations that received that funding, so they're working with our students still. We just don't have to track it anymore. You can see Title I did go down a little bit just because carryover amounts and those types of things did adjust from what our projections were in June to what actually was approved through the consolidated application process. And then the other one we have not got a final number on is IDEA Part B, which is our special ed. So we know what our allocation is. We don't know the carryover number because the state hasn't gotten that calculated yet. They won't have that until March. So they said they think it's going to be like 80 to 85. That's a huge carryover number just because they don't get it to us in time to where we can appropriate it in mid-year to expend the funds. So what we did, we took 50,000 and put that on top of what our allocation is to get to the IDEA of that 311. As compared to the about 280,000, just because we need to try to use up those funds so we don't have quite as large of a carryover number. So I'm working with Director Sunday Peach on trying to get that allocated and figured out. So we're not supplanting and doing all those types of things. We're using, so we're working through all that. So you can see with those changes, our federal grant or designated purpose grant revenue did go from 637 down to about 605,000. And that's just through the getting actual allocations and carryover amounts assigned. Any questions on that?
I do have one question. It's not a numbers question, but
Yep.
what are the community organizations that receive the federal grants that we're partnering with now?
That would be a good question for Sunday because she's the one who's working with them. She told me the other day in passing, and I can talk to her tomorrow and let you know. Yep, I can do that. I'll talk to her tomorrow. So, and then, so that's 22. Then that kind of touched on 21, which is a food service fund. The only adjustments we did make was to actual staffing. We've had some turnover and those types of things in there. And then, like I said, the cost of some of our paper goods and those types of things has gone up just because we are still running at high participation, just because it's the free feeding. And our revenue source, I did change that a little bit and shifted it more to federal, just because that's where most of our money is coming from, since the state can't support the Healthy Meals for All. So they have us getting money through the federal program, through the CEP allocation. Fund 31, that did not change because that's been set in stone since 2007. We know what our principal and interest payments are, so that didn't change. Like I said, Fund 43 did change a little bit because we had a projected fund balance in June. And as part of the audit, we had to make some adjustments for some invoices that came in September that we had to recognize in the prior year with the stadium project. So that fund balance number did decrease, which did change the spend down amount. So, I think we had like 280,000 and it went down to 204,587. So it went down about 80,000 from what was in the preliminary budget to final, just because we had some invoices come in after the close of the year that got recognized in the prior period. But the capital projects, that's for things we have going, that's where the buses came from and those types of things. And then the other change we did make was within Fund 23, just because we've had some new programs come in that are bringing in more money and spending more money than what we originally thought. CTE, doing oil changes, those types of things. So we did make those adjustments and added some expenditures and revenue associated with the fundraising activities within the buildings. And then scholarship fund, we kept the same. We are actually making decent interest since we did move that money from UBS into Colo Trust. And I need to get with Sonia and figure out who we need to talk to get that into the scholarship portal for that, since we haven't had a scholarship actually get drawn out of there in a while. So overall, you can see the changes. We went from 25,836,639 in our preliminary budget for total expenditures across all funds to 26,679,688 at the mid-year. And like I said, a lot of that is just because of the change of that revenue within the general fund. And then also there's use of fund balances. So that's the transfer allowing us to move that money in 7 into 10 of the $826,000, because that's what our program reserve number was last year, and then not to exceed the amount of fund balance within our capital projects fund, which was adjusted after our audit. So is there any questions over that document?
Not really more a question, but more of kind of the highlights from a board perspective. So yeah, general fund's up a little bit because of assessed valuations for next year. So the board members realize the Fund 7's not going to be there. So it's going to be a lesser number next year as that's over essentially. But the district.
Well,
needs-
and that's in the property tax revenue now, because we have access to it in the current year.
right.
Yeah.
It's not a double year.
Yeah. Yeah.
Too bad. We wish.
Yeah. So yeah, and then and I know that the district is looking at one-time uses for that money because
Mhm.
it's not going to recur, and then also that we're just at a good financial position and gives us some flexibility for the future. Yeah.
Yep.
Good points, Brian. Other questions? No? Sounds good. Thanks for all your hard work, Brian.
Yeah, thank
Appreciate
you.
it. Yeah, but Aaron will go. Oh, that's funny. All right, moving on to agenda item 4.3, superintendent council reports. Unfortunately, our superintendent reps needed to attend other school activities this evening. So we will not be hearing the report, but we look forward to some more additional information and reaching out with them in the future. So we will move on to agenda item 4.4, superintendent report. Superintendent Bodie, you're on go.
Awesome. Hi, everyone. It's good to see you all. I am sorry I can't be there with you all in person. Can you hear me? I can see you if you give me a thumbs up, if you can hear me. I see head nods. Awesome. That's great. Okay. Brian mentioned a little bit briefly about our sprinkler break at the elementary. We continue to have real heating and cooling problems with our HVAC. I know we go through this anytime we have a little bit of a change in weather. Some of our rooms are extremely hot. Some of them are extremely cold. We had both requests and maintenance come through of my room is way too hot, please come help, and my room is way too cold, please come help. I want to stress the importance of why we're doing this master planning and putting in so much work. We really need a plan for our HVAC and all of our buildings. This month, not a whole lot. We have in our facilities update, our safety response teams at each school met as part of their quarterly cycle within the last month under the leadership of Eric Adams, our operation director. He's doing a really great job leading these teams. We formed them 4 years ago and they've just done really great work. The teams review our effectiveness of our drills conducted in each building, and then they make adjustments to site-specific safety response plans as needed. And their participation is voluntary, but it counts as one of all of our employees that are certified employees at the school district are required to serve on a committee. So it counts as one of their committee. That's our way to make sure all of the work we do has teacher voice on it. But the group of staff members that commit to that committee also go above and beyond to excuse me, they do first aid training, CPR training, stop the bleed training. And so thank you to everyone on those. Our principals and assistant principals and office staff also are on those. And since the formation of those, we have really refined our safety management plans. And our celebration most recently, the elementary school set another district record by completing a full building evacuation and accounting for every single student in 6 minutes and 20 seconds. And yes, that accomplishment is incentivized, and I did bring them donuts, and I'm still waiting for the middle school and high school to beat them. But they did set a new record. They're just really getting great at our response in emergencies and in the event of an emergency. Our students are doing great. So thank you to Eric for his commitment and our principals to continuing to improve and refine our safety emergency response plans. Our facilities master planning work is well underway with our team of architects. Our next meeting with our architectural partners at RB+B is scheduled for February 9th. That's in a couple weeks. And so that's going to be members of our Long Range Planning Committee and our Master Planning Subcommittee. Thanks to Brian for his mid-year financial report. He does a great job with those. I just want to say I'm so excited about the fact that we are we're going to be able to put the money into our people. It's so important for a recruitment and retention stipend this year. It's really important that we're able to do that. And I'm just really excited about the board. Thank you for making that a priority, making our people a priority and doing that this year. For family and community engagement coming up, we are partnering with the CSU Prevention Research Center. The district is offering a 6-week parent team program. It started last week. It's called Guiding Good Choices, and it has a session conducted in English and then one in Spanish. Our staff members are compensated through the opioid abatement grant for both their training and the instruction of these courses. And I'm sorry, thank you to Sunday for leading that. She has been great in partnering with the Prevention Research Center and leading that initiative for our school district and really focusing on parents and what our parent needs are. And thanks to our staff members also, we have Carla Delgado, Stacy Fair, Patricia Roundtree, Kayla Downey, and Stacy Schoenberger. They are all teaching that class. So they completed the training and they're facilitating those classes for us. Our District Advisory and Accountability Committee met in January. They reviewed district academic data, including school performance frameworks and mid-year achievement data. And next time they meet will be next week, February 4th, and then they're going to review our family and student perception survey results at that meeting. Rachel Graham, our gifted coordinator, she's partnered with St. Vrain to provide our parents with a virtual opportunity to consult with a clinical social worker who has expertise in gifted education. So our parents of gifted students are invited to attend tomorrow evening with Jenny Hetch. It's titled Supporting Your Gifted Child Through Stressful Times, and it's from 6 to 7 tomorrow, and it's a virtual opportunity. So lots of opportunities for our parents as we start the new year. The next Coffee and Conversations community meeting that I'll be holding will be February 12th, and this one will be at Inkwell and Brew, so hoping to see lots of people there. And I am just so excited to celebrate the progress and growth of our students academically. We've been reviewing our mid-year academic data with all of our staff. We're celebrating a lot of things, so I'll give you a few highlights from our academic data and our family perception survey. On our family perception survey results, we increased 11 percentage points district-wide, reaching 74%. We have an end-of-year goal this year for 75%, so we're within 1 percentage point right now of that target by the end of the year. At the elementary level academically, students continue to demonstrate steady academic improvement. We have 63% of our students meeting or exceeding expectations in math. That's a 1% increase from mid-year last year, but more impressively is reading. We have 62% that are meeting and exceeding expectations at mid-year in reading, and that is an 8% increase from mid-year last year. Our middle school demonstrated improvement mid-year across every single academic area compared to last year. 65% of students are meeting or exceeding expectations in both math and reading. That's an increase of 3% in math and 8% in reading from mid-year last year. And in science, 54% are meeting and exceeding expectations, representing a 5% increase from mid-year last year. And at high school, students showed continued improvement in both reading and math. 70% of our students to high school are meeting and exceeding expectations in reading. That's our biggest increase. That's 15% up from mid-year of last year when they took the assessment. And 57% are meeting or exceeding, meeting or exceeding expectations in mathematics. And that's a 4% increase from mid-year last year. So that's all very exciting. Our district's mid-year attendance rate for our current student roster is 92.2% at mid-year across the district. That's slightly below last year's mid-year rate. Last year we were at 92.4%, so really close, but it's higher than the 91.6% that we ended last year with in our end-of-year attendance rate. So attendance was impacted significantly. We had a big flu outbreak in December, right before break. We even had one building that had attendance as low as 62% one day because of the flu outbreak that third week in December. So despite that, our overall attendance remains pretty strong. We can keep everyone healthy. So I'm just really encouraged by all this academic progress and so proud of our students and our staff and all the collective efforts of everybody, including all of our community and our families and you, the board. So thank you to everybody. We continue to make significant great gains. We've made huge academic gains over the last 4 years due to our strong support for each other and just our shared commitment for prioritizing meaning and real and relevant learning and focusing on our strategic plan. So thank you all. We are better together.
Any more questions? Thank you, Ruby. Appreciate it.
Thank you.
Yeah, Ruby.
Moving on to agenda item 4.5, administrative reports. Ms. Miller.
We'll see if I can. I'm going to keep it ready for you, Sonia. Hi, it's good to see you all. So we are excited that we're celebrating. I wanted to share again, our Golden Globe continues to get passed around. And since I saw you last, Miss Lauren Holock in kindergarten was the recipient for her hard work and really her communication and strong collaboration as our kindergarten team lead and how she's led that team for the past 2 years. And then she passed it on to Bria Acquaintance for her creativity and her critical thinking that she uses engaging our students in challenging real world learning. And that's so engaging for our students. And then today at our staff meeting, Bria passed it on to Katie Schneider. And so I'll add that for next time. So just that award has really become such a great piece of just support for each other in our community. I also want to share we welcomed Adam Tully to our community coming back from break. He's now our special education teacher working in our significant support needs or SSN classroom. So we now have that continuum preschool through 12th grade, working in conjunction with our ILC in the secondary schools. And so we're just really excited about this program, and he's been such a great positive addition to our team. We're working right now, we're consulting with Firefly Autism, which is a network of schools in Colorado that support students with autism, and getting a lot of programming consultation and support from them, as well as Sunday Peach in developing our program. And we're very excited about being able to serve all students who enter our door, move to our community in the elementary school. We're also celebrating right now, Paul Maley will be heading off later this week to the Colorado Music Educators Association conference. He'll be teaching classes for educators around the state, and he's also a leader in the conference this year for teachers around the state. So we're just excited for him and excited for all his hard work to be continuing to grow around the state. And it's great to see. The other just events coming up, our annual puppet show, which is a big hit with the kids, is this Friday. So Mike Horner comes, I think, up from Colorado Springs, and just huge thank you to the Estes Valley Library and our partnership with the Education Foundation for supporting that annual event. There's always lots of kids who leave and are ready to write puppet shows and make puppet shows. And just the creativity it sparks is so exciting. And he is quite funny. And then our annual family math night, if you want to come and run around the school and challenge people in math, will be Tuesday, February 10th. And then on February 11th, we'll be hosting the second grade music performance. Mr. Maley has a student teacher again this winter, and so Arjun will be leading that performance with the second graders as well. So pretty exciting opportunity for him. The other event date that's coming up is February 2nd is the closing date for the Universal Preschool priority registration for the first round of matching applications. And so we've been collecting those priority registrations in UPK, and that's for any of our currently enrolled 3-year-olds who want to be in our 4-year-old full day program, but it's also for any siblings of currently enrolled students or staff children. And so we've been getting those in and verifying them. After that, in February, the state will open it up to the first round of matching. And then about mid-February, we'll get our matches from anyone else who has applied for UPK. And then families will be notified in late February of their enrollment status. So that's kind of where we are in our UPK enrollment. I will just anecdotally, our UPK priority registrations are lower this year than they have been in the past 3 years. So looking forward to seeing what the matches look like that first week in February. And then, like Ruby said, we have been celebrating our academic achievement and growth. And I know you saw some more of it during the work session. I forgot to write it on here, but one of the things that we've been just really celebrating as a team is that our collective goal at the elementary school was that our multilingual learners, that 60% or more, make their growth projections, their growth goals during the first semester in both ELA and math. And we have never come close to meeting that. And we beat 60% in both ELA and math this year. And in second grade and in third grade, they were actually in the 82nd percent and 89% meeting their RIC growth for our multilingual learners. So just so excited for the progress our students have made and closing that gap between the opportunity and achievement gap between our students that we've had for the last few years. But we were so grateful to have March 5th to really dig in as a whole staff and in PLCs to make sure we're a highly reliable school for all students to be making the growth that they deserve throughout this school year. It has been, and I'll share this later on in our wellness, but we've been really working with our MTSS system to make sure no student is falling through the cracks and that any student who was below the 20th percentile in growth or in achievement, that we have a specifically designed plan for each and every one of those students, and then every student above the 80th percentile too. And so our team has been working very, very hard. We hosted our books and breakfast on January 9th, again, around our mid-year academic achievement and growth. And we are excited to share some of that progress with our families, but also help them understand the family reports that came home that week and how they can read them, how they can use them, what they can do at home with that information to support their students. And I just want to thank you all again for your support with our new ELA curriculum adoption. I know you all knew how much of a heavy lift that would be this year, and the commitment and the financial commitment you put into that was so huge for us. And we're so encouraged to see that NWA reading data growth and our DIBELS scores this mid-year. Our really great reading coach is actually returning tomorrow to work with our teachers and do some more model lessons and meet with them to help continue our progress in foundational reading skills. And then you'll be excited, they've actually published a third grade morphology continuation that we're excited to dig into to continue our skills. And then we've begun this great collaboration between Jen Maley and the library and our ELA teacher with all the real world learning that's a part of the curriculum. So it's really exciting to see. And then in real world learning, hopefully you saw that last week on Tuesday, we had our 31st annual MLK March. And I'm just so grateful to Anne Leha and her work the past 29 years, carrying on that tradition of ensuring that our students have that real world learning opportunity to learn about compassion and global awareness. And it was a great event. And then we've just started our cycle of winter snowshoeing trips up into Rocky Mountain National Park, which we're excited to get going later this week. And our teachers are excited. We'll see how the wind goes this winter. And then, this year, one of our strategic plan goals at the elementary school was to develop those student-friendly ICANN statements for our global outcomes pre-K through 12th grade. And I shared that last month, we got feedback at Books and Breakfast from parents about that. And then all of our PLCs have been really digging in to make those learning targets come to life. And we're excited about that final product moving forward. So our team has been doing a great job of creating that. And then in wellness, we had our whole school Roars Assembly on Friday. And if you're lucky, you can see some great tug of war footage. I might have beat Miss Sporlitter in tug of war. And I think that will just be my claim to fame. I just am so grateful for the hard work Severin Cargill put into that event. Really, the Student Council planned it all. They had every single grade came up with their own goal of roars to come up. I mean, the 3-year-old preschoolers were coming up in front of the entire school and saying what their class goal was. And it was just really moving. A lot of attentive as their choice. So we're excited to see that in action this semester around the school. And it was a really fun event. They did a great job of, since we didn't get to have it on the last day of school, but it was fun to have it coming back and really as a fun way to kick off the semester. And then I shared our MTSS system has been working. We're actually going to have 2 full days in February. Our MTSS the team continues to grow of the teachers who just want to be on the team and dedicate their time after school hours to support making individualized student support plans. And we really wanted to honor that. So we're having 2 days where we've gotten coverage for some of our staff, and we're going to really support so that it doesn't have to always be outside of school, because we want everyone who can be a part of making those plans to be there at the table and doing that. And the last one, it's kind of can piggyback off of Brian was sharing about the grant that we have community partners that are giving us the supports. And one of those, 2 of those partnerships are through EVIX and Crossroads. Crossroads received a grant, and this one has just been monumental for us. And I just really want to shout out that partnership with Crossroads, and particularly Lauren Pucci, who was the therapist who was assigned to work with us. And so she comes to school Wednesday and Thursday all day and does back-to-back play therapy sessions for our kids who need it for free of cost. And the impact it has had on our students is just so significant, and for our families and for our teachers, because she supports our teachers in developing plans. And it is just such an amazing partnership. I've never seen anything like it in any school. And I just really want to shout out Crossroads for that work and the grant and Sunday.
They're the ones that got Clark.
Yeah. Yeah, it just is, it's just remarkable. I can't imagine life without Lauren Pucci anymore. So I keep singing her praises and Crossroads for that partnership. So yeah, any questions?
Board question?
Again, no question, but I just wanted to thank you, Erin, for your leadership, and thank your team for leading the students and creating this wonderful culture of having a growth mindset. And what you all have been achieving is just inspiring, and thank you.
Thank you.
On the UPK topic.
Yeah.
So I believe next year we're going to do the 4 days a week, Mondays off. Have we talked to our partners, the Y, the rec center and so forth, that they might be seeing demand for that Monday where those students need somewhere to go?
Yeah, I've been in contact, Bennett, Beverly Bodie, that's I think their new name. They have kind of like a more specific enrollment, like you can't just drop in for 1 day. But I do know that Mountaintops enrollment has been down, and they have availability for all of our students would be able to go there at this rate. Anyone who wanted to would be able to go on Mondays to Mountaintop.
Okay, and they know to like offer that as
Yeah.
an option, not all week, but just the 1 day.
Yeah.
Okay, thanks.
Yeah.
Thank you. Well
Yeah.
done.
Thank you all.
Ms. Greenway?
Gosh, it's right there. I'm so tempted to just go down a little bit more, but I won't. So events and happenings right now. We have 3 secondary school students who've been selected for state honor choirs. Grace Aldridge, the Combined League Honors Choir, and Geneva Thomas, High School All-State. And then a middle school student, Estelle Lang, will be joining the middle school state choir. So really excited about that. On January 10th and 11th, high school choirs sang the national anthem at Nuggets and Avalanche games. They sent some great pictures back. We also have students participating in the Patriot League Honor Band in Greeley. That's coming up next week. And J.R. Hawker qualified for the state band. So really proud of that. I got to high-five him today in the band room. It's registration season, so we are deep in that right now. We actually have our first assembly for students tomorrow and parent meetings tomorrow night to share the basics of credits and courses and what registration will look like and get that information in parents' hands. And then the next couple of weeks, we'll be getting kids signed up for classes. So we're ahead of the game this year and excited about that. Yeah. Our high school play, Too Many Detectives at the Murder Mansions and Rehearsals. That's February 19th through the 21st at 7. We did have a teacher and a student compete in ski jor, so I just have to shout that out. Yeah, John Grottenhouse from the high school competed. I got to see him on his skis behind the horse. And then Conrad Zier, who's in 6th grade, did ski jor, and there were some delays on Saturday, so I didn't get to see him compete, but I'm sure he was amazing. I haven't had a chance to ask him how it went. He knew who his rider was, though, when I asked him at the event. I'm like, who's driving your horse, Conrad? And he said he knew who it was, so he was excited. He's that big, too, and he gets on those skis and just goes for it. This isn't really an event, but we're working on those fire drills. Like, we want some donuts so we can get them all out. It's rostering. So the kids have got it in hand. So we're still working with Eric and Paul and our safety team, making sure that we get everybody rostered and keep working on those systems so we know that if somebody doesn't have students that time, that we're communicating that through Crisis Go. So ongoing process, it's getting better. And I know we're going to get donuts before the end of the year. Maybe when it's warmer. Actually, maybe colder will be faster. I don't know. For Focus Area 1, Academic Achievement and Growth, we took mid-year map, and the data that I was going to share, I think Ruby shared, but super proud of the growth. We're pretty pleased. We met some of the goals we had set mid-year for coming up a few percentage points in achievement. And we've done it, and we will do it again in May and see if we get the rest of the way there. We did hold a raffle at the high school for an acoustic guitar, which was donated to the school, and some gift cards. And the student that won had been asking me about that guitar, like, since we knew we were doing map testing, and he was in the running for high growth. So that was exciting to see. We had a middle schooler gain 31 points in math, 22 in reading, and 18 points in science. So really proud of those kiddos. And we raffled off some gift cards and whatever you want out of our Roar store for middle school. So they got to go on a little shopping trip. The high school, we had a student gain 24 points in math, 25 in reading, and another one 22 in science. And when we broke that data down, and I know you've all seen it, but I'm really proud of our IEP and our MO learners when we look at that growth over time. And that's just a huge shout out to our special education teachers and staff and the entire staff for focusing in those areas. I think a big focus on vocabulary has impacted the reading scores as well. So proud of that. Let's see. We'll have some honor roll and roars assemblies coming up here next week, and we got some cool bumper stickers. So parent of an honor roll student at Estes Park Middle School, we'll work on that for high school next. So parents of honor roll students can put that sticker on their car. At the high school, we've got winter map under our belt, and we have turned our attention to SAT and PSAT. That's coming up in April. So we have plans in place to implement SAT practice into instruction. We're going to use Khan Academy's SAT practice courses. Students will be analyzing their MAP scores. The MAP scores predict performance on CMAS, SAT, so they can get an idea if they're in a place to get the scores they need on the SAT, and then put some plans in place and set some goals to get there. We pulled some data. I want to shout out Di Webster for leading the charge for this. If students do 20 hours using the Khan Academy, the average increase was 115 points. So we're going to put as many hours as we can without taking, we have to balance that with instructional time, but this is important. And so we know where we are with those scores and we know where we can be. So we're going to put some time and effort into this and then pilot that this year. And then we'll start in the fall next year and really hit that hard. And we want that SPF up. So I'm happy with where it is. I'm happy to be on performance, but we can get that up there. So we want to push towards exceeding the expectations across the board. WIDA testing is underway, so we'll get those results this spring. Excited to see how much those students have grown and look at that exit data as well and celebrate with them when they exit, hopefully right here. And I had some students share their scores and goals with me when they first started last week, and they were pretty excited. And I really felt a sense of ownership. So Shauna Caracello's done a great job of making sure that they're owning their data, they know their levels, they know what they need to do, and they're doing it. For real world learning, we are excited that this semester we're able to offer a journalism class at middle school. It's a bilingual newspaper that the students are producing. So it's project-based learning class, and the students have been involved from everything to like creating their logo to coming up with their names. So it's the Bobcat Buzz. And that first edition should be out, and they're really excited to be able to share news in 2 languages. We're also offering a kitchen essentials middle school course this semester at the middle school. Jonathan Santana is teaching that. So they'll get a preview of culinary, and we're hoping to continue to build interest in those pathways at the high school with a little taste at the middle school right now. The high school winter showcase, a little I didn't even mean to do that. But I did. Thank you. Sometimes I do that deliberately. The winter showcase was great this year. I really was impressed with the work-based learning presentations. Dr. Harris led the charge with that. And the students put together presentations. They had to share out to an audience. They hit the global outcomes. They hit what they were learning. I was really thrilled with those. And we got some great ideas about our strategic plan presentations of learning and what those might look like just based on those presentations. They did a great job. I learned a lot too. We have 4 high school students who were selected for CEI's AI Student Advisory Council. So that's exciting. They'll get to join other students from Colorado and share their insights into AI and student learning. I learned today that there are AI glasses. You can put them on, and there's a little, I didn't know that, a little speaker. So I wish I hadn't learned it the way I learned it, but now we know. Yeah, not really. Nothing was on my radar for that. So we'll make sure that students aren't wearing those glasses when they're taking tests or whatever else they're doing. So learning curve for us on that. That was a new one for me. Our ILC, Integrated Learning Center students, have gone into business. They have a dog treat company called Bon Appetit Treat. I love the name. My dog loves them. So they had like a test kitchen, and then they test marketed, and then they gave samples out and had people take them home and try them out with their dogs. So those kids are really learning some great life skills in doing that, and also working on communication and going out into the school community and selling their treats. So that's been a really fun project. We're welcoming JD Summers to our special education team. He was a long-term substitute in our middle school office. And when Adam Tolley moved to the elementary school, we interviewed JD for the para position, and he's been doing a wonderful job. Really thrilled to have him on our team. Natalie Apodaca Luna is participating in the American Legion Oratorical Contest. The speeches are based on the Constitution. So this is the first time EPHS student has partnered with the Legion, and Natalie will go to the state competition on February 7th. So really proud of her. She's very nervous, but I know she'll do great. We're going to offer a new course at the high school next year called Basic Automotive and Home Repair. So for students headed off to college, that'll be a great course for them, and really anyone going out into the world to learn those basics of how that works. So I'm excited about that one too. Some other new courses coming along as well, but I won't list them all tonight. For Focus Area 3 Wellness, we're celebrating that we're mostly well. We were the school that had so many kids down with that flu in December, so that was tough. So attendance is back on the rise, and that's a celebration in itself. Our wellness team's offering free yoga classes for staff on Tuesdays at the middle school. Patricia Roundtree is leading those. And we continue to recognize students for demonstrating ROARs in our global outcomes in both schools. And we recognize staff with our lateral pass trophies for staff who demonstrate and model our global outcomes of collaboration, perseverance, and compassion. We recognize Shauna Carasello, who teaches in both schools, multilingual learners, and Alex Jizba, who is our 6th grade science teacher, and they were recognized at our staff meeting. We're preparing for student-led conferences in both buildings. That work will take up a lot of our win time in Tuesdays, putting portfolios together, and hopefully students can have conversation with the parents about SAT as well and show them their MOP scores during that time. CPR will be offered on February 2nd. Janet Fanning and Pam Fry are offering that. So teachers who aren't up to date will be able to get CPR certified. I think that's it.
Board questions?
Thank you, Sonia. And thanks for instituting the additional SAT practice. I'm wondering if students are also being taught test skills and test strategies rather than just doing the questions.
Yeah, that's part of the Khan Academy program. And then Alex Harris just shared with me through Gemini, there's another SAT prep. And Khan also offers, it's called Schoolhouse. And that families can or students can sign up for on their own. And that provides a tutor. So, and it's a peer tutor. So they have a live peer tutor, and those are all vetted through Khan. So we've been sharing that information in our newsletter, and hopefully we'll get some takers there. It's important. There's a graduation requirement. And also those skills are important. So teachers are going to be talking to students about other assessment. It's not just one test to take to graduate, and you can't get a driver's license. You know, there's all kinds of industry assessment that kids have to take or adults take as they move through the work world too. So we're trying to build everything in together so it's meaningful, and it's not just to jump through a hoop. I mean, we want our students to score well on the SAT, and they can. They have to know the importance of it. Yeah. So practicing for that helps you with all the other assessments that you have to take.
Fantastic. Thank you. And then I'm sorry, I did not open your report. Is the list of new classes in your report?
It's not.
Okay. Would you be able to send that my way?
I should be able to by maybe tomorrow. We're
Okay.
putting everything together. Yeah.
Excellent. Thank you so much.
Mm-hmm.
I just, no specific questions. I just have a general comment. Our mid-year data from an entire district is incredible. our growth and achievement both. So thank you to every district employee, our community partners, they're equally as important. And it is really taking all of us being laser focused on our student outcomes and working together to get to this level and this point. So thank you to everyone. It's really exciting.
Well, right back at you. The support is valued by us as well. Like, this is important work, and I think now it's part of our vernacular that we're going to achieve and we're going to grow, and here's how we can show it.
And we can do it.
Mhm.
Great. Thank you.
Mhm.
See, moving on to agenda item 4.6, board reports. Director Kendall. Good point. Thank you. Sorry, we skipped over before we move on to 4.6. We forgot the athletic report. That's my bad. Ruby, can you share the athletic report?
Yeah, you bet. I'd be happy to. All right, so we have winter sports underway in girls basketball. They have had a big win over Clear Creek last week. The team works hard and they improve every time. And the team's led by Abigail Watry, Marley Davis, and Clara Hawker. The team's playing Flat Irons at home tonight, and they'll travel to Front Range Christian on Friday. For boys basketball, they had some good wins over Nederland and Gilpin. And the team's led by Isaac Hill. The team's also playing Flat Irons at home tonight, and then they'll travel to Front Range Christian on Friday as well. Girls swimming and diving's having a great season, and they've already qualified for 3A Chassa State in multiple events. Leon Applegate has qualified in 3 events already, the 50, the 100, and the 200 freestyle. Amazing. Actually, a 4th event, the 100 fly also. So outstanding, Leon. Great job. And then their relay team also has qualified in the 200 freestyle and 200 medley. Both relays include Leon, Maya Breezy, and Shaylee Yeager, and Adriana Hernandez. So congratulations to that team. The team's going to host their senior night tomorrow at home against Pooter at 4 p.m. I'm so sorry. I sit here and I listen and I don't cough at all. And then as soon as I start coughing, or as soon as I start talking, then I have to cough. I apologize. Boys wrestling's having a solid season. They've had some team wins over Fort Lupton, Day Spring Christian, Lions, and Liberty Commons. The team's led by Matthew Lopez and Fabian Rojas. Matthew is 21-3 on the season and 81 career wins for Matthew. We expect to celebrate his 100th career win during this season. The team's going to host University on Wednesday for senior night at 5. And our girls wrestling team, which is new this year, is representing very well. That's their first year of the program, and they're led by freshman Yasmin Lopez and freshman Quinn Batten. Yasmin is 8-7 on the season, and Quinn is 7-6. The team also will host University on Wednesday for their senior night too at 5. Everyone come out and see them, celebrate them. So lots of senior nights this week. Middle school, we have girls basketball going on. I really encourage you guys to go watch middle school girls basketball. They have a lot of girls out. Their numbers are high. The A team's undefeated this year. They've had wins over Gilpin, Ascent Classical, Knowledge Quest, Platte Valley, and Heritage Christian all this season. The team's led by 6th graders, Felicity Munch and Peyton Hansen, 7th graders, Lily Oriano and Linnea Schmidt, and they're making a huge impact. They're going to host Ridgeview Classical at home on Friday starting at 4 if you want to come watch those girls play. Wrestling continues to be a popular sport over at the middle school. Nearly 40 boys and girls on the wrestling team at the middle school this year. Estes Park has more girls wrestling than any other school in our league right now. The team is led by Vivian Netabuk and Angelina Arianco, Nate Shoemaker, Zaire Rojas, and Milo Bond for the boys team. And the team's going to host Platte Valley at home tomorrow night at 4. Lots of home athletics happening around the district. So come out and support our athletes. Thank you, everyone.
Thank you, Ruby. Ready? All right, moving on to agenda item 4.6, board reports. Ms. Director Ken?
We are better together. So I attended the Teacher Evaluation Committee. We established a collected shared goal for the committee's work, and we created an action plan to meet the goal.
Director Schucket.
I think all the meetings I went to have been mentioned tonight. Finance meeting, we talked about that in detail. Books and breakfast, sharing with the parents of the elementary school, the tests and scores there. And then also on the master planning committee, looking over those initial data on building utilization, kind of scoring different aspects of our buildings across our three main buildings and trying to understand how we're looking and what our current status is. And then also looking at some photos of other districts and kind of imagining the what if, as opposed to locked into what we have. But hey, here's what other districts have done to get us thinking of that what if status. So work there will continue.
Thank you. Director Widerski. Director Wiss.
I attended the CBOC's meeting, meeting with other district members throughout Northern Colorado, and it's always good to hear what's going on in other districts.
I attended the President Board Cafe, and the topic at hand was the legislative session and school financing. Also, district accountability meeting met, and we discussed the exciting student academic data. Moving on to agenda item 5, consent agenda. There are 6 items on the consent agenda. 5.1, meeting minutes, December 15th, 2025. 5.2, January 2026 personnel list. 5.3, mid-year budget resolution. 5.4, committee assignments. 5.5, superintendent evaluation. 5.6, superintendent resignation effective as of June 30th, 2026. Are there any items a board member would like to pull from consent agenda for discussion prior to approval of the consent agenda? Seeing none, is there a motion and second to approve the consent agenda?
I move that we approve the consent agenda.
I second.
We have a motion and second. Aaron, please conduct a board roll call.
Director Furry.
Aye.
Director Kendall.
Aye.
Director Schucket.
Aye.
Director Widerski.
Aye.
Director Wiss.
Aye.
Ayes carry the vote. Consent agenda is approved. Moving on to agenda item 6, action items. Agenda item 6.1, the Board of Education may award a contract to a professional consulting firm to conduct the superintendent search. Is there a motion?
I move that the Board of Education approve the contract with HYA to conduct the superintendent search process subject to final review and approval by council.
I second.
Is there any board discussion?
I like the process that HYA proposed. It included community involvement and engagement, which is very important to all of us.
Other comments?
Yeah, I would just like to reiterate that I really appreciated their focus on leadership and taking a really proactive approach, which I think is something that our district needs. This is a hugely important decision, and I think it's worth putting in the hands of people who made such an excellent presentation to us.
Other comments?
Yeah, I appreciate both firms presenting to us. I think they're both high quality and they both would do a good job. Yeah, I'm a little nervous about McPherson. They have 5 openings of districts just like us that are already ahead of us in the process, and that makes me a little nervous with their candidate pool of who might be available when it comes our turn.
Other comments? I to appreciate the presentations by both firms. For me, on HYA, I like the successful community engagement, how they did the involvement of the community and members from the staff, et cetera, going into the leadership profile report in advance. I like all that work being done. I think we'll get a good feeling overall on a potential candidate that would fit well with our district. Any other comments? Nope. All right. Aaron, please conduct a board roll call.
Director Furry.
Aye.
Director Kendall.
Aye.
Director Schucket.
Aye.
Director Widerski.
Aye.
Director Wiss.
Aye.
Ayes carry the vote and the motion passes. Moving on to agenda item 7, upcoming meetings. The board work session is February 10th, 2026 at 3:30 p.m. at the admin building. Moving on to agenda item 8, adjournment. Would a board member make a motion to adjourn?
I move that we adjourn.
Is there a second?
I second.
All right, thank you, everyone. We're adjourned.